This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob scolds Tim. That should be fun. Eve may never dry herself again. I don't want to know. Sharon runs down the legal briefs for this week, and Tim asks your place or mine. I'm your host, Brian Gregory. And I got nothing.
Oh, nothing hit you.
It's a nothing week.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just not in the mood. I wanted to say something snarky, and I got nothing. So, how is everybody doing?
I had a great week.
Waiting for response.
Cold.
Oh. Yes, it's cold. Weirdly cold. Although it is winter. Yet.
Not yet.
Yes.
Not yet.
Getting
So
cold.
this is a show. We're doing a show. Hi, everybody, if you're watching. I'm going to introduce these guys because they're the show. I'm just here to talk.
We've already met each other. Oh, never mind.
First up, we got Bob Blaskowitz, CSI's Conspiracy Guy web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and Swift blog contributor. Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality. Sharon Hill, editor of Doubtful News, CFI's science consultant, and author of the Sound Science-y web column. And finally, Tim Farley, JERA Fellow, founder of SkepTools, Skepticality contributor, and creator of What's the Harm? Wow, there's like no energy in this room.
It's like my 8 o'clock classes.
Oh,
Well-
my 8 o'clock class was this. You know, holding my eyes open.
When I
that
take
bad.
roll in the morning, John,
Eh,
Jane.
Well, we'll try to be entertaining to the people who are watching. I think we got like 11 people on here now. But let's see. If you're watching and you find something that we're saying curious or boring, or you just want to say something snarky because we love that, you can post it on the YouTube comments or on Twitter with hashtag Virtual Skeptics. Or I think you can use this Google Plus Q&A thing, supposedly, and see if it's
Give it a
working.
whirl. See if it works.
Yeah, give it a whirl. If you can find it, because I'm not sure how to find it. And we will do our best to include your questions and or funny stuff in the show. First up, Tim is going to do this week's trivia question.
Oh,
Go for it,
yes. Yes. We've been doing some pretty hard trivia questions, and I know people are mad because it's too hard. You don't know it. So I'm going to give you a very simple trivia question. No hints. This is it. The Patterson-Gimlin film of October 1967 is evidence of what?
Crickets.
Go to work.
Evidence of crickets.
No Googling.
No Googling. Okay, then. That was interesting. Who's first? Eve's first. And Eve's going to talk about something explosive. Well, at least
Terrifying.
burning. It's a burning question.
Yeah. Many years ago now, Douglas Adams told us we should always know where our towel is. What he didn't tell us is that towels are an incendiary death trap. Brighton, England has been hit by a rash of tea towel explosions.
Wow.
All over the city, tea
I
towels.
recognize those words, but not in that order.
Tea towels have been erupting into flames, leaving most of Brighton a smoldering ruin. Why is this happening in England? Who the hell else has tea towels? And if one of you says, I have tea towels, I'm crawling through the internet to slap you. In America, we use dish towels. We don't need no stinking special towels to dry our tea accoutrement. Anyway,
Coffee towels. We use coffee towels.
the latest victim of the scourge of the exploding tea towel is Billy's Cafe in Hampton Place, Brighton. Now, we have actual photos of Billy's Place in Hampton Place, Brighton.
There you go.
Yep. And then
That's
this
quite
is
a
the
tea towel.
aftermath.
Wow.
The aftermath, there you go.
That chili is hot.
Yeah. And actually less damage than you might expect
Yeah.
from that explosion.
Those walls stay up.
Yeah. Anyway, last month, 2 tea towel explosions occurred on the same day. at a vegetarian restaurant, Terre Terre, and at Brighton College. So 3 tea towel explosions in one city within the space of a month. Wake up, sheeple! Some coincidences are too coincidental to be coincidences. Is it possible that the tea towels are rising up against us? Or is it the reptilians in the New World Order who are getting at us through our tea towels? Exploding tea towels are just another excuse to round us up and put us in FEMA death camps in Brighton, England.
Brighton, apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you sure it's not a plot to win Wimbledon?
They already did that. Damn it. Against the blancmange, I think.
Yes.
Now, okay, I may have been exaggerating the damage just a teeny tiny bit. The fire at Billy's Cafe began in the basement, setting off smoke detectors. Firefighters using breathing apparatus were able to quell the fire, but the cafe was only closed for one day. The fire at Terra Terra was more serious. The kitchen was gutted beyond repair, and the restaurant won't reopen until December sometime. And it took 16 firefighters to put out the fire at Brighton College. Brighton Borough Chief Mark Rist is warning people about the risk of exploding tea towels. And
so there were 16 firefighters required to put out a fire that a tea towel started?
Tea towel fire, yeah. And it's not just happening in Britain, people. Towels of the non-tea variety have been exploding right here in these United States.
Oh no. The humanity.
It's true. In fact, it is actually a known danger of the laundry process. If a towel or other item has oils or fats or chemicals on it, it could spontaneously combust. Spontaneous towel combustion. If the fats or chemicals aren't completely removed during the cleaning process, and sometimes they aren't, they can cause the laundry to burst into flame. It can happen in the dryer, the heat causing the oil to catch fire, but it can also happen after the drying cycle's over, especially if the laundry is left in the dryer or left in a heap, like in a laundry basket. They can smolder for hours before bursting into flames. Restaurants where oils and fats are present in abundance, and hair salons that use a lot of towels and chemicals are particularly vulnerable to exploding towel syndrome. So it's important to be...
There should be a month, like wearing little ribbons.
Towel-like
Little
ribbons.
towels. No, they'll explode on you.
I know. This just all over people's chests exploding. So it's important to be very careful with laundry items that may have come into contact with combustible stuff. It's also a good idea not to run the dryer unsupervised, and you should also air out your laundry as soon as it's dry, not just leave it in a heap. And always, always know where your towel is. And
Yes.
there
Stay
could
away
be
from
one in your house right now plotting your fiery demise. In related news, some researchers say that King Tut spontaneously combusted in similar circumstances.
All right, I'm
I
leaving
know.
this planet. I'm done.
It seems unlikely.
You'd think we were hoaxing this or something.
Yeah,
Is this a
and the
joke?
Brits are involved in this too.
Yeah.
It could be a plot of the tea towels, I'm not sure. British archaeologist Chris Naughton uncovered notes from Howard Carter, who discovered King Tut's tomb, that said the body seemed to have been burned. Then Egyptologist Robert Connolly looked at fragments of Tut's flesh and bones under an electron microscope, and he confirmed that Tut did suffer from post-mortem spontaneous human combustion. No article has been published, so it's another one of those, scholarship through press release sort of things. But the experts suggest that oils used in the embalming process could have soaked into the linen wrappings. So always remember, and consumer advice here that I think is very important, Always remember, never, ever tumble dry your mummies.
Good to know.
Good advice.
Good to know. Yeah.
So what was that deal about that the tut was buried in a rather quick manner, and that possibly caused the spontaneous combustion of wrappings?
Yeah, I'm not
couldn't
sure about
follow.
that. And that was part of, also they say he died in a chariot accident, and they're very specific about that. But no one's really accepting that because the state of the mummy is not in particularly good state. Partly, apparently, the way it was removed from the tomb,
Right.
and so it's difficult, if
I had
not
someone-
impossible, to say what which were injuries, ante-mortem, and what happened long after death.
Right.
Someone
So-
commented that the mummy was removed in chunks.
Chunks, yeah,
So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
well,
the
they
one-
did say that this was more of a virtual autopsy where they were doing scans and
Yeah.
figuring out, so they're not actually like doing what they would do in a real autopsy and cutting into the.
Right,
So-
and
so-
it seems
There's limits to
every-
what they can.
every few years someone comes up with a new definitive explanation of how King Tut died.
He was
But we'll
killed by
probably-
Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, exactly. We'll
Or
probably never
jackalopes.
know. Yeah.
Jack the Ripper.
So
Or jackals.
somebody killed the mummy with fire.
Yes.
It could have been tea towels.
They
just
wrapped
saying.
him
They
in
wrapped
tea
him in tea
towels.
There
That's
was
it.
there was one really good
Freshly
comment.
out of the dryer.
All right, science.
There was there was one really good comment on the it's on the YouTube, I think. No, this is Twitter, from Nicola Masbar, which I'm not saying, probably not saying the name right. He said that the towels are most intelligent beings on the planet, and that these exploding towels are their space program.
No,
So-
good.
I kind of like that.
So
And-
long, and thanks for all the downy was their last message.
I thought it was the snuggle bear, actually, but the thing is just that's evil.
That's our evil overlord.
Did get one question.
Isn't fabric softener combustible?
Is it?
Quite possibly.
Well, that's a good question. I don't
So
know.
it's the evil snuggle bears
Mhm.
and their tea towel bombs. Got one question on the Q&A app, which I'm going to select. See, from Carlton George, whoever that is. I'm not sure who that is, and it says "Evening all." So we're
Evening.
So
That wasn't a
there we go.
question.
So Q&A works. Woohoo!
So thanks for that story, Eve. You got any more?
No,
That was
that's
it. Just the burning tut.
That burning feeling
burning, yes,
from the
tut.
towels.
Okay. Next we got Bob. And I'm just
Absolutely.
go introduce
Absolutely
yourself.
nothing happened this week.
Good.
Nothing
Okay.
of
Good,
any
moving on.
interest.
Moving on.
Yep. So, there was that thing where this guy, if you could bring up the image,
Oh,
Stanislav
no.
Brzezinski.
let me go to the right one.
He was glued to a small child.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, that's kind of how it works. He uses them basically as props. So the FDA released into the electronic FOIA reading room a document that skeptics have had for quite some time. I think actually we had it as soon as it was possible to have it, and we've held on to it for a while. Waiting for the right time to release it. But the FDA did it for us, and Tim got the RSS and tweeted it, and the internet was raging at what the FDA had observed at the Brzezinski clinic. Now, I should mention that the clinic has the right to respond and then be raged at even more. So, but the findings are exquisitely damning. And they're about Brzezinski himself and his role as the principal investigator. He failed to comply with protocol requirements related to the primary outcome, therapeutic response, for 67% of study subjects reviewed during the inspection. This means that several people who were reported as complete response did not meet the criteria. and the same for partial response and stable disease. This means the outcomes figures for his studies so far are completely inaccurate. We're not sure if what he submitted to the SEC, but there were outcomes on there, and if those aren't accurate, he may be in some trouble. Additionally, some patients admitted into these clinical trials for the antineoplastins failed to meet the inclusion criteria for the studies, even though patients needed to have a physician back home to monitor their progress prior to enrolling in a trial. The FDA found that they found a patient who began receiving treatment before a doctor had been found. Patients who had grade 3 or grade 4 toxic effects were supposed to be removed from treatment. One patient had 3 grade 3 events followed by 3 grade 4 events. Another patient had 7 disqualifying toxic events before he was removed from the study. Brzezinski did not report all adverse events as required by study protocols, the FDA found. One patient had 12 events of hypernatremia, which is a high sodium, which is caused by the antineoplastins, the sodium phenylbutyrate. And none of these were reported, and there are several similar patients. The FDA told Brzezinski, quote, "You failed to protect the right, safety, and welfare of subjects under your care. 48 subjects experienced 102 investigational overdoses between January 1st, 2005 and February 22nd, 2013, according to the list of hospitalizations and serious adverse events list for a specific trial. Furthermore, quote, "There's no documentation to show that you've implemented corrective actions during this time period to ensure the safety and welfare of subjects." Now, most of these overdoses, it looks like, seem to be related to the fact that patients are turned out on their own to program their own treatment pumps. So they get pumped with this stuff pretty much 24 hours a day while they're on treatment. And when someone enters something wrong into the or does a little bit of bad math, you end up with somebody who gets a massive dose of antineoplastin. And that seems to be a lot of what's happened. This is infuriating, and this is all the first observation. Okay, we haven't even gotten to the second one. Quote, and this should concern people, quote, "Your tumor measurements initially recorded on worksheets at baseline and on-study treatment studies for all study subjects were destroyed and are not available for FDA inspection or review." This means, as far as I can tell, that his studies are unpublishable because his data is unverifiable. And all of them destroyed? So I don't know what's going on here. This is highly irregular, and seeing how these yes.
How much of it can you? I mean, is there any way you can tell how much of it is just incompetence, or how much of it is deliberately trying to falsify information?
Doesn't matter. You know.
Well, I mean, of course,
I can't tell that from the outside, but they said were destroyed.
It's hard to tell because the report is, you know, sort of a bullet list of things that the inspector was able to mark as wrong, and it doesn't say everything they looked at or everything they saw.
It not necessarily comprehensive.
And a lot of it
either.
is redacted to leave out, you know, anything that could identify a patient or proprietary information that
the
might.
fact that the records are gone is
Yeah,
a deliberate problem.
that's bad.
That's bad.
You know, it could have been an accident, but the protocol in place meant that it was a deliberate mistake.
I looked at the their reply is that, well, we have the measurements, we don't need the scans. No, I'm sorry, Stan. We need the frickin' scans.
I can remember what they said. That should be good.
Yeah,
enough.
I know exactly.
Who needs evidence?
So some adverse events were not reported to the Brzezinski Clinic IRB, the Institutional Review Board, for years. One patient had an adverse event, for instance, in 1998, and the Oversight Board didn't hear about it until 2005. The FDA observed that the informed consent document did not include a statement of the extra costs that might be incurred. Specifically, some informed consent documents were signed days to weeks before billing agreements were. And in a couple of cases, no consent form could be found. And lastly, the clinic was unable to account for its stock of anti-neoplastin. So the investigational drug itself there
Didn't even bother tracking it.
So,
Yeah, I think Gorski said in one of his posts that alone, not tracking the medication that you're studying, would get a real study shut down.
absolutely. And one of the things
Isn't that couldn't that be a violation of federal law not to track some of that too?
Think.
I will let the authorities work on that. Skeptics have been working very hard to see that the proper authorities are familiar with what's going on here, and so I think this is really exquisitely damning for Brzezinski. In fact, the Captain Poopy Pants, Dr. Brzezinski, put up his redacted responses on his website yesterday.
Keep it classy there, Bob.
I was being classy. If I said what I thought, we'd all be in trouble, right? So, they put up their kind of redacted. It's hard to say. He seems to be saying mostly, well, if we change the definitions of things, patients don't overdose? I don't know how that works. So it's a lot of legal dickering, and he's going to get crucified. So what this means is that good will always triumph because evil is dumb.
Well,
Nice modified quote.
I know.
Will it mean that he gets shut down, or will it mean that he just doesn't get? He comes out from under the trial umbrella and comes clean and still can do this treatment because people will still go to him.
I don't know. The warning letters have not all been issued yet. I would be amazed to see that he got away scot-free as if there weren't some major penalties on this. But a number of people I've spoken to said they've never seen a review this bad. And this is what we've been warning people about constantly. And I really wish that people, in the Brzezinski patient group would take stock and everything that the skeptics have been saying is borne out in this. This is I feel really bad that we're talking right past them. It's not the skeptics who are betraying you, right? Anyway, but that's going to fall on deaf ears, and I feel bad because they are victims.
Apparently.
Yeah. So it's been a bad week for Stan Brzezinski, and I wish him many more. I think next year for his birthday, we'll get him a cake. Put a file in it.
Exploding cake.
I thought
No.
you were going to jump out at that little dance.
Yeah, right. So he wishes. You can't have this, Stan. You can't.
Thanks for going there. Oh boy.
Oh, Bob.
On a similar topic.
Right, so it made everybody a little bit
Uncomfortable?
hot there. I'm sorry. I have that effect on people.
Hot, nauseated, hot.
Same. Yeah, uncomfortable somehow. Yeah,
I feel like I'm going to
uncomfortable.
spontaneously combust.
In your pants.
Just
Good night,
keep
everybody.
Going further and further. Okay.
Virtual Skeptics is on
I'm
Fox.
clicking Tim. Now Tim is on screen. We're only going to listen to Tim now. And now it's
is it my
Bob.
turn?
Yes.
You can mute Bob,
It's much more fun if I
Just
don't.
through my entire talk, right? Good.
I wanted to talk about, since Sharon, I don't know if you were going to talk about this, Sharon, but
No.
Sharon had a little problem. Sharon had a little problem with her website and had to move it from one hosting service to another, and we don't have to go into what that problem was, but it underscores the importance of the ability of skeptics to react when you come under criticism, because this originated originally the problem was started by someone criticizing skeptics, and that's a problem. That happens. We get copyright violations, bogus copyright requests sent to us. We get, people trying to shut down accounts and things like that. So you have to have, if you're going to do skeptic outreach, you have to have something that you control. And one thing that you can control is having a domain name. So Doubtful News or What's the Harm. Even if your internet provider leaves you out to dry and doesn't protect your free speech rights, at least you can take that domain name and move it somewhere else. And there's plenty of competition in internet providers, so there's lots of places you can move to. It's a big pain in the butt to do it, but
5 times I've done it 5.
yeah. And so it's important to do that. But what I wanted to talk about tonight is there's kind of a flip side to that, which is that it's also important to have your presence elsewhere. And this, I think this sort of goes without saying these days, that everybody has a Twitter account and everybody has a Facebook page and everybody has a whatever. And it kind of started with, to a certain extent, I feel like it sort of started with YouTube, in that it was such a great place to stick videos so that you didn't have to pay for the hosting costs of serving video off your site, and they solved what was a thorny technical problem when YouTube first came out of, does a person have, do you have Real Player, do you have QuickTime? I don't know if you folks remember this, but playing video in the early days of the web was a big pain in the butt, and now you just go and it works, right? Look at where we are right now. We're doing live video on the web. So these sites solve...
Oh, this is live?
Yes. These sites solve different problems. If you put my slide up, one of the advantages of this, and this is just a picture of my homepage with one of my videos up, and it's me from TAM 2012, and that, of course, is a YouTube, which is embedded into my blog, and I can put other text around it. Some of you are watching this video embedded into virtualskeptics.com. And then on the right-hand side, you see it says tweets in the slide. That's what I've been posting on Twitter, and this is not a live picture of my blog, but and so you sites are more than just your domain now. Okay, it's an aggregation of whatever you want to put together. And what I was going to show you tonight is another way you can do that, and in particular, I'm going to talk about that thing below the 3 icons, below the Twitter feed, in the lower right. It says upcoming major skeptic events. Yes, I'm going to shill for Lanyard again. And what I'm going to talk about is why, some people ask, well, why should I put, if I have stuff on my site, why should I bother putting content on Twitter and putting content on Facebook and stuff? Well, part of the reason is outreach, trying to get people's attention, because they may be on Facebook and they may not know about your site. But part of the reason is also that you can do these aggregation things. You can pull stuff together, and your site can become more than more than the sum of its parts. So let me see if I can get the screen share working here. Okay, I'm in screen share mode now. Let me show you, this is just a little toy blog I have over at Blogspot that's called SkepTools. It's not the real SkepTools. But I just have it to play around with Blogspot features when I need to answer a question. And I don't even remember.
Really small.
Yeah, let me see if I can zoom it up a little bit. Oops, wrong button. I forget what I was testing there with those ABCD titles, but it was something about blog titles and URLs. And so let me show you what you can do with Lanyard integration. Here is the control panel for that blog, and you can see you can add different gadgets and stuff, and there's the blog archive on the right. Well, if you go over to the Lanyard site, they have a whole bunch of different services that you can use. You can get badges for your website.
We don't need no stinking badges.
Right. You can get Atom RSS feeds.
We don't need no... No, sorry.
Shut up. and I'll show you those in a second. You can get an iCal feed, which lets you put lanyard information, either like a feed of a series of events or the feed of sessions from a single event, into your calendar. And then of course you can have that on your desktop, put it on your tablet, wherever you can put an automated calendar. And so this is all, and then they have this reportive thing that I haven't even tried out. But what I'm going to show you right now is these badges. And basically, if you click that badge thing, there's a few little snips of HTML here, and they're clever. They made their help page automatically customized to what you need to type in based on who you're logged in as on Lanyard. And what you can do is, I'm back to the Blogger console. Let me zoom this up a little bit. Alright, so if I click Add a Gadget, and there's different things you can add in Blogspot. What we'll do is just add a simple HTML JavaScript gadget on the right hand side. And simply what you do is you paste the stuff that Lanyard tells you to paste. They have you paste a script, and then they have you paste this little piece of text, which is a link to your own profile on Lanyard. And I'm assuming here that you're going to attend or speak at conferences, either one. And that's all you need. You just paste that text exactly the way they give it to you in there. And now if I yeah, there it is. You can see Lanyard there to the right, very small text. But if I save the arrangement and I go back to the web page and refresh it, now I have a little Lanyard thing on the right, and it says My Conferences on Lanyard, which is simply a link that goes to my profile. But you'll notice there's this black line up at the very top. And you may or may not be able to see it, but
Cool.
It's automatically put in there, and it says See Me Speak at Skeptech 2. And that's automatically drawn from my profile, and it'll be whatever my next speaking arrangement is. Now, maybe you don't speak at conferences, but it would say something different if I didn't have an upcoming speaking thing. And they put that in there automatically. So, and they also give you another piece of text you can put in. They call it a content splat for some reason.
What?
It's a splat.
Yeah, I don't know why they call it that. But
Maybe that's
you can add that into the same spot and just paste what they give you in there. And my save button is hiding. There it is. Okay, so now I saved it, and I'll save the layout. And if I refresh, I should get, over there now you see on the right-hand side directly there it says My Conferences on Lanyard, Skeptech 2. And there's, if you read the rest of that page where I was cutting and pasting this from, there's all sorts of customization. Like you can have it display or not display the city. You can have it display the conferences you're going to versus the ones you're speaking at. Or you can even, on Lanyard, there's a thing where you can mark conferences that you're tracking, that you're just interested in. You can list those too. So maybe you want to sort of hand curate the Skeptic conferences that you think are cool, and you put them on there. And the neat part is this is auto-updated, right? So as time goes on, like after Skeptech occurs, this will automatically disappear off my page, and the little black bar at the top will say something about, see my conference presentations here instead of showing an upcoming one. Now, all of that required this little piece of JavaScript that I pasted the first time, and some blog platforms don't let you use JavaScript, like, for instance, WordPress.com.
I was just thinking that.
Which is where I run SkepTools and where we run Virtual Skeptics. So we can't use that JavaScript thing on those blogs, but there are still some things you can do. And the way I actually get the little conference list on the right-hand side, this is my actual console here for Skeptical Software Tools. You can see I've got some comments I need to moderate. And one of the widgets is an RSS widget. And all I've done, remember back on the Lanyard help, it said they have Atom RSS feeds for each page. So all I've done is pulled the RSS feed from the skepticism guide that I created. And that pulls the next 10 events off that guide, and it automatically updates. And I gave it the title Upcoming Major Skeptic Events, and I told it only to display 6 because that was about the right size. And that gives me that nice display on the front page of my, whoa, that's big, blog over here that auto-updates, and you can click any of these and see more information about these events. But this is all, sort of what they would really call Web 2.0 in terms of one website using information that's drawn from another website, and it's all live and auto-updated. Another example of this is if you go to the Skepticamp wiki and go to the main page, right here below the picture, they have the next couple of Skepticamps, and that is actually drawn from the list of Skepticamps that we maintain over on Lanyard. And that the nice part about it is it's auto-updated, and as time flows, those will disappear and new ones will appear on there, and it's all automatic, and it's drawn from Lanyard's data. And as long as somebody makes sure that all the Skepticamps are entered over at Lanyard, this will automatically be updated. We don't have to be constantly editing the front page of the Skepticamp wiki to make sure that it's up to date. So I just wanted to give an example of why these sorts of things are the reasons that I push stuff like Lanyard. It's not just because Lanyard's a cool site to go to, it's because you can do all this other stuff with the data. The data isn't just locked up in Lanyard. You can pull it out and use it on your own website in interesting ways. And finally, my last thing is another interesting way that you can use it is with Google Maps. If you click this little pushpin icon here on the Skepticamp wiki, it'll throw you, hopefully it'll work. Oh, it's zoomed way in. Oh, there's only, I don't know why it's only showing one event. But basically, it'll show you a map with the upcoming events on it. In this case, for some reason, it's not showing the 2014 events. I know why, because the 2014 events I haven't, and the venues aren't announced yet, so they don't actually have a location. But if there were multiple upcoming events, you could see actually a world map and see exactly where the events are, and you can click the push pins and get the details from Lanyard. So this is the kind of stuff. This is why I'm a shill for sites like Lanyard. You can use them. They act as outreach, because if someone happens to be on Lanyard looking for a conference, they may find skeptic stuff and come to our sites. But even beyond the outreach, you can just reuse the data and pull it right over onto your own website and get basically some free functionality.
So I mentioned Lanyard to the organizers of the conference that Eve and I went to this week, and they were interested. How does Lanyard make money?
They have some for-pay options. If you are willing to pay them some money from your event, they will turn on some extra things. Like, for instance, there is a Lanyard iPhone app, and if you pay them, I don't know what it is per conference, they will enable an ability that you can actually send push notifications to all your people who are attending through the iPhone app. And I think they enable a way so that the attendees can actually mark the sessions they're attending, so that your attendees can actually see who's going to what and stuff like that. And some other little things like that they turn on if you pay them. There's also some things where if you dig around on Lanyard, especially in the tech conferences, companies that do a lot of promotion at tech conferences, like these big technical companies that are always trying to push their technology, they'll send their technical employees to give talks. And there's a way that they can set up sort of like, here's our employees, and they get like a special page on Lanyard, and it looks really cool. And then when one of their employees is talking at a conference, they get a neat little badge at the bottom of the conference page, and they pay money for that.
Okay.
So that's those kinds of things is how they're making money. And now they're part of Eventbrite, so there's all sorts of other revenue that Eventbrite has.
I was just curious because I mean it's just so devastatingly useful.
Yeah.
You know,
well, they were in that early, hey, we'll build it and we'll figure out how to monetize it later sort of thing, which seems so crazy, but actually does work amazingly well if you do a good job of building something people want.
Yeah, and I guess the the idea is that they're building up content into their databases for the enhanced stuff by offering free.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, everybody putting stuff in, putting books in. I put hundreds of books in there for all the Skeptic speakers. So when you go to like Joe Nichols' page, you'll see a whole ton of books that he's written and contributed to. And I just put that in, for conferences that he was at. But if he ever goes to some other conference, that conference sort of inherits all that content for free. And so, it sort of builds and builds and builds and gets better and better the more people use it. But yeah, look into these badges and these feeds. It's really cool. You can get some free functionality for your website. And if you don't like the way I'm doing the skepticism guide, it's super easy to set up your own guide and just go to the events you want to be in the guide and say add the guide, add the guide, add the guide. It takes you 15 minutes to set up a guide with I only want the events that are in Canada, or I only want the events that are west of the Mississippi, or whatever your criteria is that you want on your website. You can set your own guide up. It's free. So,
well, it's clear to me that if this continues to succeed, it will be partly due to the efforts of Tim Farley and his continual inputting of data and plugging the site. So,
well, I like it. It's a cool site, and I like having a calendar that an event calendar that's not just usable in and of itself, but you can do these cool things with.
Yep.
And clearly, you're in the pocket of Big
I'm
Lanyard.
in the pocket of Big Lanyard.
Big Lanyard.
Yeah.
You're hanging from the neck chain of Big Lanyard.
They should at least buy me a beer or something.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm going to tweet that.
Hanging from the neck.
Lanyard owes Krelnick
It's
a
on
beer
record.
for reals.
Mm.
All right. It's tweeted. We'll see if you get a beer.
Can they send beer through Twitter now?
I don't know.
That's
They
one of
should.
those added functionalities that they...
Only on iPhones, probably.
Yeah. A little icon.
Yeah, it's what drone delivery. Speaking of drones, I guess it's my
God.
turn.
Oh,
I thought you were going to Sheridan saying that you drones.
yeah. You're gonna
Like you
punch
bastard.
you in the head there, Brian.
No, it's my turn. So it's
Wow.
my turn to drone on.
Time for the music.
Yes, time for the music. I'm playing the music, but the mood's gone. You guys just ruined it, everything. So first up, I got two quick stories. But first up, I've got what we all wanted. Let's see. Can I get the picture up? This guy, smiling guy. See, this is a scientist. This is what scientist looks like.
I think he's a chef.
Yeah? No, he's definitely not a chef. This guy, whose name is impossible to pronounce, I'm going to read it. It's Dr. Starts with an I. Ioannis Iriopoulos. That's not even close, but I don't care. He works for the University of West England, Bristol, and is working on a project to make robots that run off of urine.
Urine.
Urine. Yes, so they have...
Come on, dude.
It's actually kind of cool. They've developed a technology that does these bio fuel cells.
You know
They-
what?
they-
This
they-
is how the Matrix happened.
These don't run off people; they run off people's urine, which could work. Maybe that's the power that they use.
Fields of
that
pee-pee
makes
farms.
the whole Matrix thing possible.
How are people wired into it then?
They're not wired into it yet.
All right.
Actually, what it is they have microbes that eat various things and produce electricity, which is cool in itself. But apparently, urine is one of the best foods to give it. So convenient. Well,
Are
they
these naturally occurring bacteria, or are these engineered?
I don't know. I don't know. My understanding is that this is something natural that they've just kind of cultured in a way that allows them to produce these things. I am not a biologist. I'm a
P
roboticist.
bacteria.
So I concentrate on the robot technology. This is actually a project that's been going on for about 10 years. And earlier this year, they actually announced that they managed to have to produce these fuel cells in a way that's actually feasible to use them to power devices. This year, they've been working in collaboration with Bristol Robotics Laboratory to actually power devices in a way so that the device can essentially fuel itself. So the idea is to have a micro pump of some kind that can be powered off a fuel cell that can pump fluid into the fuel cell. The fluid would be urine, possibly. So the idea is that the fuel cell is enough to power what's required to fuel the fuel cell, so it would be sustainable. And they could essentially just have the thing go visit the local public toilet and refuel every so often.
That's how Brzezinski started.
Nice tie-in.
Thank you.
But the cool thing is that they have this new pump that they've developed that is it's based on the memory materials that keep their shape based on temperature, and they can pump just like a heart pump. So it uses a metal muscle essentially instead of a spinning gear, which requires a motor, which requires higher power output. So it's more of a we figured out a way of doing this so that it doesn't go beyond the power requirements of the fuel cell itself.
So is that entire apparatus there that's fueling an iPad, right? Or whatever. I mean, is that the battery?
Well, the experiment they did earlier this year was one of the fuel cells is what's in his hand, that little tiny orange thing. I think the rest of it's a manufacturing apparatus, but they did manage to fuel a cell phone earlier this year and power a cell phone to make a phone call off of one of these fuel cells, which is very cool. So, urine-powered phones, urine-powered robots. So
for the people who drop their phones in the toilet, this is a boon.
Yes, it certainly could work out for the best, or not, because apparently this is one of the many things that are driving robots to commit suicide. And here's a picture.
No, I'm sorry, that was killed by a towel.
It was not killed by a towel. This one...
It was nuked from space.
No.
It looked like it was grilled. Is that a grill?
This article, which has been everywhere, but the version that I found that had the most detail in it is on Mirror News, UK. And the headline reads, "World's first robot suicide as family returned to find cleaning gadget had turned to ash."
Oh my God! Was it a depressed Roomba?
The Roomba killed itself.
Yes. Well, apparently the owner of this Roomba.
Self-aware Roomba. I'm sorry, I didn't hear your cries for help.
He put the Roomba up on the kitchen counter to clean up spilled cereal, apparently, and reportedly turned it off, left it there, and left the house. And also, apparently, left something cooking on the stove, because the kind of details hidden in the article. But they come back, and the robot had somehow reactivated because they clearly turned it off. Went to the stove, pushed the pot off the stove, and then got bogged down, melting on the heating element that was turned on, and then eventually, smoldered into a pile of ash.
So it isn't really like spontaneous Roomba combustion. It turns out there was an ignition source.
Clearly, I mean, the oven was on. These people clearly don't know how to take care of their poor, lonely, defenseless robots, and left it on the stove for it to run around free and play. It had no idea.
So they left with their stove on, even.
Yeah. Well, apparently, they're going to sue.
Oh, shut up.
Because they say the house is, it's all burnt up. It's not livable anymore. They're going to sue to get some money for this.
Okay, we have more consumer advice.
And that's probably why he's claiming that he turned the thing off, which, clearly...
Or regular hints from Heloise tonight,
Yeah.
Tea towel.
Kitchen safety.
Don't.
So if
Tumble
you've got,
dry your mummy. Don't leave your Roomba on a
well, the other thing is
stove.
it's clearly not hygienic to put your urine-powered robot on the kitchen counter.
No, urine's sterile.
No, it's not.
It
No,
is
it's running
until
off
it leaves
bacteria.
the.
Yeah.
According to Brad Pitt, you can drink it. Never mind. So there you go. There's my two stories. And yes, yet another reason why robots are going to commit suicide, which is because they're going to be powered off of urine.
I think it sort of
Burned to death.
it looks like it was tracing out a pentacle.
It was,
on
or
Yeah.
maybe it's like it's a suicide note.
Ooh.
Yeah,
think
it does look like it's got like track. Like, go back to the picture.
Yeah, it does.
because it was melting. The poor little wheels were
So
melting.
it was doing its damnedest to clean
Oh,
that
no.
countertop.
Can we
I
have the,
just-
the Roomba declared sentient, and then if they do win in their lawsuit, all the proceeds will go to the Roomba's heirs?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Wow.
I just
Wow.
think that it couldn't escape. You know, it got on the stove and it couldn't escape.
Help,
Yeah,
I can't get
because
to the
it's got that
floor.
lip around the outside of the stove.
Yes.
So it kept, yeah. And
Or
eventually-
it sensed the nothing, you know, the cliff, so it like a stair, and it wouldn't go down it.
I don't know. It just, well, to be straight, it really. The whole article kind of pissed me off because it's another example of it's just a simple little event that happened. But because some clever writer somewhere decided to say it's a robot, maybe it committed suicide.
Suicide.
It got picked up by everything everywhere because it has this
Right.
sensational title, and you've seen that a million times. So, yeah,
Yep.
there you go. Up next. Getting away from the pea robots and all that stuff. Sharon's going to be serious about something.
Criminals.
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 Yeah.
Robot criminals?
No. So, a couple legal stories I noticed this week. Jim McCormick, who was sentenced to 10 years in jail for selling the ADE 651 fake dowsing, fake bomb detector device.
Yeah.
He went for an appeal and he was
Quadro tracker.
denied. Yeah, the Quadro tracker. He was denied, so his 10-year sentence stands. And if you recall that his early business partner also had gone to jail. I hadn't heard if he appealed his sentence or not, but I don't think that they're going to be getting out of jail. It looks like they're going to have to serve their sentences, which is good news. We were happy about that. Second, I'll go for another good news story.
Thank you.
Jury took only 45 minutes to convict Kevin Trudeau this
Yay!
week, which was lovely. Everyone clapped, everyone cheered, and I suspect that 45 minutes was just about the time where you can get the jury in a room and read them the rules and take a poll, because he was very obviously guilty of criminal contempt of court for lying about the contents of his weight loss book. And what turns out is that it's kind of confusing how he ended up in this predicament, but he disobeyed the orders that the judge gave him. And part of that order was that he was not allowed to be disingenuous about the products he was, the book that he had, and he was. He said it was an easy diet to follow. That is, if you only eat 500 calories, certain foods get injections and colonics.
500
Turned out to be
calories.
500 calorie is not
That's-
an easy diet. You're guaranteed to lose weight, and probably, your health is in jeopardy as well.
I'm losing weight right now. I'm on a diet and I'm eating 1,800 calories every day. That's more than 3 times that.
Well, somebody
Yeah.
who would listen to Kevin Trudeau for their medical advice is just, that's not the way to go. And like the article notes that there were still many of his followers in the courtroom who were upset at the verdict. He is going to jail. He's considered a risk to flee, so he was kept in jail. And there's no maximum jail time limit for contempt, so he may end up with probation. He may end up with time served already, being that he's in jail today or tonight. Or he can theoretically be given life in jail, which that won't happen. But it's nice to think. It's nice to think that he's going to get what's coming to him. Nobody likes Kevin Trudeau except for those sad few people who still support him, almost like a guru, or they compared him to Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was really sickening.
Wow.
And then I'm unfortunately
Nelson Mandela, to be fair, scammed the pants off of everyone. Okay. Don't tweet that out of context, people.
Oh, where's my phone?
the way consumerist calls him infomercial scammer, infomercial fraudster, stuff like that. So, although I did talk about him this weekend at a talk I gave, and somebody actually asked me, "Who's Kevin Trudeau? Who's that guy?" And I had to explain.
Yeah,
but as soon as I
stay
explain,
up until 3:00 in the morning,
right,
and
you
watch
may not
weird channels, you could easily not know who he was.
right.
Yeah.
Although he's around. But okay, so I have to end up with some. It's good news, but in a bad case, it ends up being a conviction of a young man. I believe that two young men who actually killed their friend in an apparent satanic ritual. This was in Johannesburg in South Africa. And the trial was for 4 people who were charged with the murder of this 18-year-old girl. She was beaten, doused with gasoline, and set on fire in Johannesburg in October of 2001. And then she died in hospital a week later after she rescued her 14-year-old friend who had survived the attack. Apparently she actually carried her while she was dealing with these eventually fatal burns. She was killed, as this boy explains it. He and his friends were undergoing some ritual where they were looking to gain some power and fame. They had heard that American rap artists had been selling their souls. Tupac, Snoop Dogg. We talked about this before. The relationship of rap and hip hop artists to the Illuminati and a satanic cult called Oto, and as if they needed to make some pact with the devil in order for them to have success. People are believing this. It's pretty astounding that they would actually kill a person in order to gain this, using her as a sacrifice. They were found guilty. So there is some retribution for the family, but it was a horrendous crime. And I suppose the good thing is that it did get a lot of publicity, and maybe she didn't die in vain. You bring this to light that these superstitious and what seems to us completely ridiculous beliefs are actually getting some traction from some people who actually think that this is something worthwhile to do. It's strange to think about, but and a horrendous crime, but at least some closure for the family.
Yep.
And yeah, so a couple psychics, thrown in jail or arrested again for scamming. Seems to be on a roll, which is nice. The curse scam that's been going around that got lots of got lots of psychics all over the country, actually all over the world, because it happens in Europe too. Seems to be getting more traction as well. So I'm hoping that more people hear about this curse scam and don't fall for it, or report it. Yeah. Report it when they're taken advantage of.
It's funny how it's been a lot of prosecutions lately, because that is an old scam. It's like hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
And since I've been doing What's the Harm, I literally see one of those stories like
they're
every
templates
week.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same story. And it's just in a different town. And some of them it's the same one, and they just go from town to town.
Yeah. Exactly.
But,
so it's important to share these stories, especially with people who don't get the internet. Like your grandparents. If that happens to come up in conversation, your grandmother says, "Look, I met a psychic." Maybe you should try talking to her, because these people are out there to take the money off of very vulnerable people.
Yep. So that's all you got?
That's what I got.
That's your thing. Okay, we've got 3 little things to do before we're done. One is Tim needs to answer our trivia question. I didn't see anybody posting answers online.
I saw there were a few people who said Bigfoot immediately. Which is sort of technically correct, but the two answers that I really liked was Travis Estrella on YouTube said it was evidence of what the weather was that day.
That's a
Nicely
good one.
done.
And Nathan Miller on Twitter said the film is evidence of the free time possessed by the alternative primatology crowd.
Another good one.
Those are both good answers
Worthy answer,
because it's not good evidence of Bigfoot. But yes, the Patterson-Gimlin film is the famous Bigfoot film, and Bytor posted a link to the really cool. If you haven't seen it, I retweeted it. Look on my Twitter feed. Someone motion stabilized it so that the background,
Well, they've had those
gets
for
the
a
shake
while,
out.
didn't they?
Yeah, it's been, but I'm sure some people haven't seen
Yeah.
it. If you watch it, you could just it totally jumps out at you that it's someone in a suit when you see it stabilized without the shakes. So anyway,
Awesome.
so good job, Travis and Nathan.
Yeah, good job, guys. Great response.
You died last.
Yes. The robots will kill you slower than everyone else. Let's see. Now we've got announcements, and everyone got their books.
I got
books?
mine.
Okay. I don't see any announcements in the notes.
Oh, I have an announcement.
Yeah?
It just happened during the show that somebody tweeted something about Deepak Chopra, and Deepak Chopra responded and said, "I'm blocking you." And
Nice.
yeah, I'm not blocked by Deepak Chopra, but I got a few extra follows because of it. And one woman who said, "Maybe wisdom from Deepak Chopra will do you some good."
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Mm,
Could I ask
so
a favor from our viewers?
as long as it doesn't have anything.
Make it quick,
no,
Bob.
I'm scared.
Yeah. Could you please send a tweet to Suzanne Summers asking her to respond to the charges against Brzezinski? I would very much like to see whether or not she doubles down.
Okay.
Just block
Wow.
us
Fair enough.
all.
Wow.
Chrissy
Okay,
was
then.
not my favorite. I liked Janet.
I like Jack.
I wouldn't lead with that if you were asking her to do
Doesn't
something
mean what you
for
think. No. Who's going first?
I'll go first.
Go.
The
Since you're
Wood
ready.
family spent the summer at Catawmet, Massachusetts on Buzzards Bay. Wood's cousin, Bradley Davis, was working at the Marine Biological Laboratory at Woods Hole, within bicycling distance, and some old friends owned a summer cottage there. While bathing one day, he happened to invert a wooden pail over his head, and holding it down on his shoulders with his hands and kicking with his feet, amused the children by the sight of an animated pail moving along by itself. Next day, he cut a rectangular hole in one side and set a piece of plate glass in it for a window, and put 40 pounds of lead boat ballast around the rim. This weight held the bucket down over the head when filled with air and submerged in water, and enabled the wearer to sink comfortably to the bottom. Then, antedating BB, an early underwater guy, they connected the bucket to a bicycle pump operated on a rowboat with 20 feet of rubber tubing, and stayed underwater as long as they liked, viewing the fish, seaweed, and submarine landscape. By the way, this story dates from 1897.
Wow. Very cool. Go ahead, Sharon.
Spiritualism has claimed among its follower numbers of brilliant minds, scientists, philosophers, professionals, and authors. Whether these great minds have been misdirected, whether they have followed the subject because they were convinced fully of its truth, or whether they have been successfully hoodwinked by some fraudulent mediums, are a matter of conjecture and opinion. Nevertheless, they have been the means of bringing into the ranks of spiritualism numbers of those who allow themselves to be led by minds greater and more powerful than their own.
Bob?
In 1977, Dan Burton, a Republican congressman from Indiana, stood proudly on the steps of the state capitol to announce that Indiana citizens should ignore FDA warnings and use Latril as they pleased. Oh dear. 10 years later, Burton disagreed with the FDA again, this time for banning ephedra, a weight loss product that had caused psychosis, hallucinations, paranoia, depression, irregular heartbeats, and strokes in hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And then more crap about Burton.
You just don't feel
Strong
worried
ending.
anymore.
Thank you for sparing us.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eve.
Generally speaking, the most elaborate and most instructive Revenant episodes are to be found in the sagas of the Icelanders. This chapter will therefore concentrate on these texts, of which a total number of 36 are preserved. The plot of these narratives is based on events and persons from the early history of the Icelandic Free State. The main topics are conflicts among neighboring wealthy peasants, often resulting in feud, mutual killings, and other kinds of bloodshed. Court scenes primarily at the legendary Althing, and the fate of famous outlaws prosecuted and ultimately killed by their enemies. Despite the historical impact, the sagas frequently refer to mysterious and supernatural phenomena, such as magical swords, prophetic dreams, berserkers, werewolves, and the living dead.
All the good stuff.
The living dead.
Okay. Don't put people or anything else on pedestals, not even your children. Avoid global labels such as genius or weirdo. Realize those closest get the benefit of the doubt, and so do the most beautiful and radiant among us. Know the halo effect causes you to see a nice person as temporarily angry, and an angry person as temporarily nice. Know that one good quality, or a memory of several, can keep in your life people who may be doing you more harm than good. Pay attention to the fact that when someone sees nice and upbeat, the words coming out of his or her mouth will change in meaning. And if that same person were depressive, arrogant, or foul in some other ways, your perceptions of those exact same words would change along with the person's other features. What's your book, Tim?
My book was Dr. Wood, Wizard of the Modern Laboratory.
Wizard.
Or Modern Wizard of the Laboratory. It's
What's
a
the copyright date on
biography,
that?
1941.
Wow.
It's a biography of Robert Williams Wood, who is best known to skeptics as the guy who debunked N-rays.
Oh, yeah, cool. Very
And he
cool.
had a very interesting life.
I bet. To find that one or borrow it.
Yep.
Go ahead, Sharon. What's your book?
Mine is A Magician Among the Spirits by Houdini.
Nice.
Do-do-do.
Bob?
Mine is the ebook of Do You Believe in Magic
I
by...
believe in magic.
I know every time I hear that
Nice.
title, I sing that song.
Yes.
He's coming back to D.C. soon.
Oh, yeah?
To do a talk.
Cool.
Is a new book or something coming out? Yeah.
That is
That book.
That's the new book? Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
that's the
I
new
did.
book.
Awesome. Eve.
Mine is Matthias Tykert, Droigula, the Droiger in Old Norse Icelandic saga literature, and his relationship to the post-medieval vampire myth in the universal vampire origins and evolution of a legend.
Well, it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't
Wow.
They were not economical with their titles.
That, and yet
it?
another book
It's a
that is
German,
not a
too, so that's all
chance
one
I would
word.
know. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And mine is a book called You Are Now Less Dumb.
Oh,
And
David
it's-
McRaney.
Yeah, David McRaney. It's subtitled How to Conquer Mob Mentality, How to Buy Happiness, and All the Other Ways to Outsmart Yourself.
Yeah.
And I just started reading it. It's been interesting. So.
Yep.
And I guess that's that. Is that everything? We have anything else?
I am going to be missing in action for a couple of weeks.
I think is it
I'm-
next week or
well,
the week after
I'm
we
going to
don't
be
have a show?
missing. We're not going to do a show Thanksgiving week,
Yep.
but I'm also going to be missing next week, which is the week before Thanksgiving, and I'm going to be missing the week after Thanksgiving for two entirely different things that I can't tell you what they are yet.
Oh, no,
But the-
Tim.
You're going to give us trivia questions, right?
Oh yeah, I'll write you some trivia questions.
We'll hold you to that. So, in case you didn't catch that was one of the announcements we should probably mention is that we're not going to have a show Thanksgiving week,
Right.
which is 2 weeks.
You'll just have to catch up on
now.
earlier episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else in the
Wait, when are we
comments? I
going to
don't see?
record our Lost
What?
episode?
We already did, Bob.
Shh.
Oh, shh.
Okay, then. I guess we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you all for
Like a mummy in
watching.
towels.
There's the music. Virtual Skeptics is an independent production of Doubtful News, What's the Harm.net, Skeptical Humanities, and myself. Our logo is designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com, and our theme music is by Trimmer and used with permission. The dances are freestyle.